You yourself have served now since nearly 3 decades ago. For many of the younger cadets now entering college or are in college now, many in the Gen Z generation, um, with this new generation, with new environments, new technologies, new challenges, what are some specific challenges have you encountered from the higher command level in preparing cadets perhaps to lead effectively in today's military environment? And how has cadet command really worked to overcome perhaps these challenges that, is encountered that changes with each generation?
I guess I'd first start off by saying there's nothing new under the sun, right?
Okay.
If you went back to the greatest generation that fought
Hmm.
World War II, I bet they would tell you that when they got to senior leadership positions, the next generation was vastly different than theirs, right? And I think
Hmm.
we face this as a nation when we have this generational changes, and now we have an army that really has what, three or four different generations serving at one time, because some of our most senior leaders are probably, uh, you know, were born in the 60s
Yeah.
and are now in the most senior. I was born in 1970.
Hmm.
Uh, my highest boss in the Army was probably born in the early 60s. And then we have folks from your generation serving. So now we have this army or service that has multiple generations serving at once. I don't think any of that is really unique. And what it comes down to is how do we see value in what people bring to the army? I really think some of the things that uh, Gen Z and some of the new generations are bringing to the force in terms of savvy with technology and those kind of things. When you think about the UAS threats. We have a space force.
Yeah.
The Army. I'm actually wearing a senior space badge as
Ah.
an Army officer. So think about that. Think about what your generation has touched in terms of technology. That, quite frankly, when I was a high school student and college student, there were no cell phones.
Right.
Let that sink in a little bit, William. And now I lead a force where not only are there cell phones, but the technology has vastly accelerated what my generation probably didn't think was possible in terms of how we communicate and those things. I think we absolutely need a multi-generational force in order to leverage uh, the
Hmm.
expertise and the things that each one of those generations bring. We got that blue collar generation from the 60s and the 70s where those folks just had those blue collar jobs and they worked. That's not the case with some of the younger generations. They haven't necessarily had blue collar jobs like that where they work. And I think the value is kind of merging those cultures and leveraging what each one of those, finding the value in each one of those cultures and leveraging those to our benefit as opposed to having conversations about this generation is different. Maybe they don't see work the same way that my generation is doing. Well, what does that mean? And how do I, as a leader, get the most out of that? I think that becomes the challenge. It's much easier to say that this generation is lazy, rely on technology,
Hmm.
look at their cell phones all the time. It's a lot harder to say how do I leverage what they are really good at to make our army uh, to allow our army to continue to be the best land fighting force that's ever been on this globe. That becomes the challenge. How do we do that as leaders and take the things that each one of those generations, the superpowers that each one of those generations, I think, bring to the force, becomes the leadership challenge. And I think if we look at it from that lens, then it becomes what value do you have that I can leverage against the problems that we have today? And if you think about what's going on in the Middle East, in Ukraine, and the things that they're seeing, how quickly technology is changing the battlefield. We absolutely need your generation in order to help us solve some of those problems.